Have you experienced a traumatic event, something that has been really attached to you for some time, something that you've experienced that was unfortunate, that was of no fault of your own, but you're having a hard time getting over it? You're realizing that this experience that you've had is something that has been weighing you down and possibly preventing you from living your life to the fullest. Well, I'm going to show you exactly how to think about this trauma, but more importantly, how to get over it and transform it. So that way it actually serves you rather than prevents you from being your true self. My name is Peter Abundant, aka Dr. Abundant, PhD and ordained minister of metaphysical sciences, and also the author of The Enlightened Shadow and Spiritual, Not Religious. When it comes to trauma, the first thing that you really want to anchor in your mind, conceptualize, is that the experience, the trauma, is not who you are. Because many times this experience that has happened to you, oftentimes what people tend to do is it is so anchored into their subconscious. It is such a big part of their history because of all of the emotions attached to it, that people often identify themselves as being that event, that situation. Now, oftentimes this is not something that people do intentionally, but you recognize that you think about this event pretty much every single day, and especially moments when you are triggered by something. The event, the thing that has happened to you, though, you have to think about it as an experience. You have to think about it as not just an experience, but a memory of the experience. So what does that say? That says that the experience, the memory of the experience, is based on the person you were when the experience took place, or when the person did such and such to you. Now, what that means is it isn't based on who you are now. Okay. This begins to give you insight as to how to actually turn this quote unquote traumatic experience into something that is actually going to empower you and help you to really align yourself with what it is that you desire. So when you understand that you are not this experience, okay, you are not your thoughts, you are not your emotions, right? You are not your job. You are not even the body that you're in, okay? You're not your skin, you're not your culture. You are way above and beyond those things. The same thing, of course, applies to the trauma. But the thing that really locks you into being attached to the trauma is the emotions that were engaged, that were stimulated when the actual event took place. Okay. Now, that emotional trigger, the emotions that were ignited, engaged, right, that were you experienced at that moment, they were based on who you were at that moment because you were at a place where the situation was one where you basically weren't equipped with certain things, right? Certain tools, certain thoughts, certain understandings about who you were. Maybe you were a child, so you didn't have the emotional intelligence, you didn't have the mental, you didn't have the spiritual intelligence to actually process that particular event accordingly, right? As you would now. Now, again, that gives you insight as to how you're going to transform that situation, that memory, into something that is actually going to empower you and help you to get through it, heal from it, but more importantly, empower you to align yourself with what it is you're really supposed to be identifying with. You see, your essence is really untouched by any past pain. When we're talking about essence, we're talking about consciousness. We're talking about the core of who you truly are. Okay. When we think about consciousness, we think about it as something that is very, divine, something very spiritual, something that has been really romanticized. But what I really want you to get into is the aspect of it that is really about awareness. It's really about just taking a inventory of where you are. Your thoughts are just an expression of the mind. Your emotions are just triggers of where your mind goes and what ignites you, right? What pushes your buttons, what excites you, okay? What makes you sad. These things are expressions, but the power of these tools that you have is that they also can be used to program your mind, your subconscious mind, particularly. And programming your subconscious mind, which is basically 85, 90% of all of your mind, which accounts for all experiences that you've had, but more importantly, all of the triggers, all of the reflexes, all of the habits, the programs that actually allow you to maneuver through the world, and how your programs sit in your subconscious, they aligned with directly the results that you create. This is why the subconscious mind is such a powerful tool for manifestation, but more importantly, living the life that you want, essentially creating the universe that you desire. And so when you think about all aspects of yourself, you think about your emotions, your thoughts, keep in mind, though they are powerful tools and assets, they are not who you are. They, in fact, are just the tools that who you are actually use. Okay? Your consciousness, your awareness is what you have to come back to when it comes to recognizing this traumatic event and understanding that the traumatic event has been programmed as a reflex, as a trigger, as a pattern, even a belief system, because when it happened, when this actual event took place, you were at a space where you weren't equipped to, think about it differently or think about it more from a more empowered point of view. Okay. So based on where you were, who you were at that moment, you felt like there was a sense of danger involved here, right? Something happened that wasn't supposed to happen, far from the ideal situation. That has been programmed into your subconscious mind. And therefore, whenever anything, even in the slightest, reminds you of that event, you are triggered. Okay. This shows up in all aspects of life. Now you're at a place spiritually where you recognize consciously that this traumatic event is ultimately interrupting your flow, is interrupting you connecting with who you truly are and living up to the potentiality of all the things that you can create for yourself. So you have to recognize the trauma as a memory of that past self. Now, is that past self your true current self? No, it is not. So again, that gives you more insight, more of a tool to really put it in perspective. Because every time you put it in perspective, you get a little bit closer along the understanding and the transformation of this trauma. Okay. You are not defined by who you are. You're definitely not defined by who you were. So again, we are taking this step. Okay. So now you're shifting from this mindset of I am broken to a mindset of understanding. Okay. I have experienced pain, but I am whole and complete, because you're understanding that the memories, the thoughts, the emotions, okay, the event itself is not who you are. Your awareness and ability to observe it is, in fact, who you are. You are the observer. And so when you get into understanding what when we mean by consciousness, it is that aspect of you that observes the situation, even the memory of you thinking about it, the trigger, the emotions, or what have you. So now you get into learning how to break free from the attachment of the past, because you identify and understand that at this present moment, though you have the memories, you have the emotions, you may even experience the emotional intelligence temporarily, the spiritual intelligence, the mental intelligence temporarily from that event because it has been programmed and set in your mental DNA, so to speak, right? As a program into your subconscious as a kind of a protective program. Okay. So now that you know that this program is not serving you, you can, in fact, begin to correct it. Now, there's numerous ways that you can do this, but you must first understand how identifying with the trauma, just reinforces its presence. Okay. So you have to begin to separate yourself from the trauma. You have to understand that though this trauma, this event, this moment in the past that no longer exists, but is only a memory, and a memory based on who you were, which is not who you are now, is something that is far and distant from who you really are, right? So you have to separate that. Then you have to detach from the emotional weight, okay, through self awareness, through perspective shifts. Now, this is what we're going to get into how to shift the perspective, how to take your current perspective and actually change the memory, even. So, one, again, you are not that person, but that person is stored into your subconscious mind and it continues to replay, right, as yourself when something similar to that event takes place or happens. You have to reinforce in your subconscious mind that that is no longer you. How do you do that? Well, you get into really reprogramming the memory. Okay. Now, you may be saying that is impossible. This thing happened this way. It can never be changed, but it can be. Okay. Through tools such as hypnosis, you can actually change it. Not only hypnosis, but also visualization. So, what you're going to do is you're going to take all the tools available to you now, whether it's from all the books you've read, whether it's from all the conversations you've had or the therapy that you've had. And now what you're going to do is you're going to visualize yourself communicating with that past self that has experienced that traumatic event at that moment. And you're going to coach them through the actual experience. You're going to visualize that over and over and over and over as many times as possible. And you're going to coach that individual, your past self, right, through that experience, thus changing that experience. Okay. This is using things like, the quantum field or going into other frequencies and dimensions to actually create a different experience. Then you're going to dial into that frequency, that experience, and you're going to bring it into the current moment as your present memory. Okay. Thus healing yourself from the trauma. When you heal yourself from the trauma and coach yourself through it, then you actually learn to transform it. Now, remember, this is only about you. This is not about the person that may have done something to you, right, within that traumatic memory. This isn't about forgiving them. This isn't about letting them, letting it go. This is solely about you connecting with your past self in a quantum dimensional connection and going into really healing, supporting, coaching that past self through that particular event, helping them, guiding them, giving them the insight, and then continuing to visualize them taking your advice and moving forward. And then visualizing how that individual, right, how their life will in fact be positively affected and impacted. Okay. Thus creating you being in that positive, that reality of them actually so to speak, not experiencing that traumatic event, but going into the positive fork of that reality. You see? So that is essentially how you detach yourself and recognize, one, you are not your trauma. And this is how you can detach yourself from identifying with the trauma, from, the scarring of the trauma, okay? The re-experiencing of the trauma, the memory of the trauma, right? And just heal yourself through the trauma. But also, when you keep practicing this visualization, you can implant supportive, empowering advice and information and insight to that past self, right? Thus, creating a space where you actually are basically giving advice to the younger version of yourself and it actually happening. Okay. Because everything that you give to that younger version of yourself comes to you. And thus you create a new reality in this present moment by referring and educating yourself in the past. So you have to reclaim your true self. That's what this is about. This is about understanding you are consciousness. And with consciousness, there are no limitations. With consciousness, there is no time. Okay. So you get to reprogram the memories that you have and thus create memories that align with supporting you to actually take the trajectory that you desire. You are not your past experiences. Those past experiences don't even have to be your past experiences if you don't see it fit. Okay. Yes, we can transform the perspective of those experiences, even if they are quote unquote negative, because we are here in the present moment. But if you find that the past experiences really are, holding you down and you can't just simply forgive the individual, you can't just simply recognize that that experience has still led you to this moment of transformation and recognizing that, hey, you are here now. You are gaining access to the wisdom, the infinite divine wisdom that is already within you. Then, if those things aren't good enough, you can go back to that moment and change the experience altogether. Okay. And that is the step to align with your higher self and go beyond the trauma. Healing is about remembering your wholeness. And there is no experience that can take that away from you. Okay. It's not about fixing something that is broken. Okay. It's about recognizing that you are whole and complete, no matter what happened before and no matter what happens in the future. So recognize that with this technique, with this method of recognizing that the tools that you have now, are accessible for you in the past, right? In the memory of the past, thus transforming the past. So understand the power of your consciousness. It goes beyond time and space. Okay. It is now in the present moment. And when you are here in this present moment, you can literally create anything that you desire. But if you are stuck in a past that no longer exists, then it's going to be really difficult for you to be in the present moment, thus create the life that you want. If you are worried about the future, then a future that will not likely happen, right? Or isn't happening, won't happen, because the future is always moving. It is the present moment that always remains the same, that remains here. So you have to stay here in this present moment and take the knowledge and wisdom that you have available to you, right? That you are able to access and understand. You take that and you simply just reprogram the past. So that way in this present moment, you're more in alignment than what you desire. So that way, when the future actually becomes the present moment, then all that you desire has been materialized and has been manifested. So understand, please, the trauma, no matter how bad it is, is not bigger than you. Okay? When you understand that you are bigger than any traumatic event, any experience, any event, anything, then you understand your power. So please apply this technique continuously. Practice this every single day, or at least every moment when you are triggered, because the triggers really indicate to you there's a misalignment. And so when you understand the source of that misalignment, then you actually apply this technique to reprogram that source. So that way the source code, right, can actually be reinforced. Okay. The source code is your consciousness, the purest aspect of who you are. But the source of the trauma, the trigger, will then also be in alignment with the source code of your consciousness, which will support you in speeding up the process of actually creating the thing that you desire, creating the life that you desire, being empowered, and then understanding that you are the creator of your universe. Thank you so much. Feel free. Go to drabundant.com, subscribe to my daily newsletter, and get access to this free ebook, The Power Within. Continue to join me on this journey. Peace and abundance always.